and we can continue building up from where we stopped in the previous workshop. So just let me know if you can see my screen, because I'm about to share right now. Okay. All right. So how many of you can see my screen? I'm looking at the chat, so I'm going to move the chat to a different screen. Yeah. So okay. So I can see Bender said you can hear me. Okay. So can you see my screen? All right, good. So what we're going to do basically is, I think I have to just take off some of this stuff. Okay. So, all right. So we're going to create a new project here. So I see some people are still trying to join. So yeah. So the hosts can assist us in adding those people up. I'm currently sharing my screen. I'm going to quickly create, of course, with the terminal. I'm going to create a new project. What we are going to do is I'm going to just explain a bunch of things to you, a bunch of things around Postman. Though you already had a session with I think Moses, yeah, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm going to also cover some of those things again, and take some of your questions in the chat as well. Yeah, so we're going to be explaining Postman. I think I have Postman opened up already. I'm going to explain with an example. So let me also zoom in. And yeah, let me know if this is clear enough. If you can see this, let me close every other thing so we can just have like a very simple, to avoid confusion. I'm going to close every other thing. Okay, so I believe you can see Postman, correct? Yeah. So looking at Postman, we have, of course, we have a bunch of things here. It looks confusing. Okay, someone is saying I should zoom in a bit again. So now it's already looking too big. I think we might have to manage this. Probably if I take this one step further, it's going to cut some parts of the display. So let's just stop here. I think maybe you're using your phone. Try to use your laptop, and or maybe you can, yeah, just try to use your laptop. So we have a lot of sections here in Postman, and most times this is what you see when you open Postman for the first time. It takes you to like this dashboard, right? Where you have different workspaces, and you also have your profile. You can invite people to join you on your. If you don't have this, you can definitely create this, right? So this is my workspace, and I have a bunch of workspace in here, that I've created and some that I've joined. So what I'm going to do is, to explain, using this as a starting point, right? So first off, what we can see, we have the home menu, the workspaces, the API network, explore. You can search, right? You can search the Postman. I would call it like a directory, or you can also perform search, related to your own set of workspaces or collections. We have the settings area, you have your profile, you have notification, and let's cover what we have at the top here first for now, okay? So of course, home would definitely bring you back to this dashboard, right? Home will bring you back to this dashboard where you can see, you see we have options like, exploring popular APIs, APIs that you can actually explore. You can fork this into your own collection, right? You can fork this and pull down the collection into your own workspace and play around with it, right? You have the Zoho, REST API, Razorpay API. So there are lots of, APIs that you can explore from here. So yeah, okay, yeah. So yeah, Perpetual, we can see that. Yeah, we understand. It was a network thing, and that's not an issue. Okay. Yeah, so we have a bunch of APIs you can play around with here. You can go ahead and test some of them. We'll definitely play around with one of them very soon. Yeah, and the next thing we're seeing here is workspaces, right? So you can create a workspace, you can join workspaces, you can just, so what is a workspace? A workspace is basically, a way to isolate some set of collections that you have, or some set of projects, in a different space or a different container. So I can choose to create a workspace right now for like the top universe project, and within the project we can have multiple APIs, we can have multiple collections, right? And yeah, we can actually like move those things to their own space in such a way that we isolate them from other workspaces, so only those people that are added to that workspace can see those set of APIs or collections, right? Okay. Yeah, we also have API network, where you can, create or join, private API networks, public API networks, partner API networks. And so basically, if you're asked, what is an API network, right? You have like 3 or 4 organizations, building APIs, and they choose to make some public, right? Or they choose to integrate, some of these APIs together. Let's say you can have multiple organizations, build up different set of APIs and ensure that they are on the same network so that people can explore and see how they can, probably utilize this, set of APIs, to achieve something or to build something. I think most times you might not be using this if you're working on, solo projects or probably small projects. Probably you would end up using this if you're working for large organizations that tend to build multiple APIs around different different workspaces, and then choose to put them on the same network where they can get to use some of them without really exposing or opening up their workspace to guests, right? So then you also have Explore, which is basically where you have a bunch of open-ended APIs from Postman, right? And when I mean open, I'm not saying you can just go in there and start using them. Sometimes you definitely need an account. You need some kind of private and public keys. And I would also explain that as we proceed. Right. So you have search, of course, you can search for, I told you can search under your workspace, your collection, APIs, flows, you can basically search for distance within the Postman application. So next we have settings. And of course, everyone knows what happens in the settings. You set your preference. Basically, you see, I'm currently using the dark theme. I can switch to the light theme, right? So you have the general area where you are able to set some of these options. There are so many things here, and I think what we'll do is you go through them, and if you have any question, I mean, these things are basically self-explanatory, right? But if you have any question or there's something you don't understand here, always feel free. In fact, let's do it this way. So I want you to really go through these stuffs, right? Bring your questions down to the room and I will answer them. So just take your time, download Postman. I believe you already know how to do that. That's why I did not show you on this call, because I believe we've already discussed about downloading Postman from the beginning of the class. But if you have not done that, you can simply do a Google search, Postman download. If you're using a Mac, a Windows, or a Linux distribution, you can just download for your specific operating system. All right, shortcuts, you can customize the shortcuts and set your own key bindings that would probably perform a particular action if you're not comfortable with the defaults, right? These are the defaults, and I don't see any reason why you might want to do this. But they are switched on already, so you can use them. I'm not sure if you can even customize, but yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, but you can definitely work with the shortcuts. I love working with shortcuts. So if you also enjoy working with shortcuts, I think it will be faster, to create a new tab, to close a tab, and to do all these stuff, right? Now, data. So basically, you can choose to import, collections or, export collections from here. You can also do this, from the, without coming to the setting, but yeah, you can choose to export everything you have. So I am thinking, so this is saying export all your collections to a single dump file. Oh yeah, okay, so fine. I think using this feature, you can actually export everything you have in your list of collections. And I will show you, what collections are and how to create new collections and how to even create requests within those collections. So you can also import. So let's assume you have 2 laptops. You are trying to migrate every single collection or data you have on, the other laptop into this particular system that we're currently using. Now, when you are signed into Postman and you synchronize your details or your data, you can just log in. You can just log in and everything would come in here. But let's assume on the previous laptop, you did not really, like log in. You were just using it without, signing in into Postman. You might want to just export those things and import them here, straight from the settings. Let me close this. Okay, so let's go back. All right, so yeah, that is for data. Then we have add-ons. Of course, you can add the extra feature, and this is there's something called Newman. I'm not going to explain this in depth, But basically, Newman is a command line, companion, just as it states here, and you are able to integrate, these collections into your project. Basically, Newman, right? So it's a node command line tool. When you install it, you're able to run Postman collections straight from the terminal without having to even open Postman. Yeah, so I mean, it can look complex, but when you get to that stage, you would also, I personally don't use it, right? And I think it depends. If you use it and you enjoy using it, or maybe you're working on a project and you have a specific pattern, you might work with a company where they choose to use Newman, right, for running some collections, probably during tests. So yeah, just it's good you know about it, right? So if I click on this right now, it's going to take me to npm, and it will take me straight to that particular package. And we have more details about that package on the description, right? So you can see it allows you to effortlessly run and test Postman collection directly from the command line, and it is built with the extensibility in mind, so that you can easily integrate it with your continuous integration servers and build system. So the idea is you write a bunch of tests, and you want to be able to test all these things before pushing to production. You can do it in such a way that you integrate this whole thing. You have Newman installed maybe on your CI/CD server. Once you push this, Newman is able to run those tests and tell you which of them is passing or failing, right? So that is just the feature. That is just how it works. Then we also have certificates. You might want to test collections on a remote server, and that remote server might lock you out because you don't have the right access into the server. So if you're using Postman to run remote tests on a collection or some APIs deployed on a specific server, you can work with a certificate, right? So when you import the certificate will act as an authentication, right? To pass through the authentication phase of that server before hitting the endpoint and testing that endpoint, right? Yeah, so I can also tell you that most times a lot of people don't know these things and they don't even use it. But when I'm explaining tools like this, it's a good idea to touch on so many areas. And the ones that I don't really know well, I would also ask you to go ahead and do your research on that. So for the proxy, yeah, so personally, I have not used this, but I know very well that when you work with a bunch of applications, you are able to configure proxy because you probably have a server, or you probably have some endpoints, that would only accept a particular IP, to test or assess, that particular server. That's the way you've configured your server. So let's assume within your company, you have like an internal proxy. Maybe you're using like this internal network that only some set of computers from the office can access this specific set of servers. Now, let's assume you are then working from home today, right? You're working from home, but you want to test those servers, and no one would give you direct access to test those servers because of security, right? Because of the set rules and regulations of the network. So what you might have to do is then proxy through your company's IP, right? So that is where the proxy configurations come in. You can set your custom proxy and ensure that you're currently using your company's network. Even though you are working from home, you are able to proxy through your company's network to access those servers. So that is where configurations like this would come in. But there are other ways to do those things without having to do it in here. But at least it's good you understand when you are asked, okay, so what do we do on the proxy tab? You understand what happens here, right? I don't use this, and I've not used this, ever since I started using Postman, but I'm very sure that that is the, function, as you can see. Specify a proxy setting to act as an intermediary for requests sent through the builder in Postman. And these configurations do not apply to any Postman services. Okay, so the configuration is based on your own services within your organization or within your company. All right, and finally, updates, it checks for automatic updates, and you can then install those updates and about Postman. Okay, so basically, I know I went through this real quick and fast. If you have any question, I'm currently looking at the chat, drop your questions there and let's move on. All right, so notifications, right? So you have people adding up items to your collections, or they add you to like a separate collection or a separate organization or a separate workspace. You are able to get those notifications here. So, and you can also link this up to Slack. As you can see, that's a new feature right here. You can link this up to Slack. And if you're on the Slack group, when you have notifications, maybe someone updating the collections or stuff like that, it will definitely notify you, and you can quickly check that out here. Of course, the last thing here, we can upgrade, right? We can upgrade to paid plans. Currently, you can see this on a free plan, right? And you have your mock usage, your limits, right? You have up to 1,000 limits. You have your storage usage, you have your monitoring usage, and I don't really use most of these things here. Instead, I use a tool called Stoplights for some of these things, mocking and the rest of them. Yeah, but you might become an API guru, and probably with a short period of time, you might exhaust these options you have here. So you might now end up upgrading to a paid version of Postman. Okay, now some of the things I've explained here would also apply in some other tools, right? Because they're similar, right? We have the Insomnia, we have a bunch of other tools, and yeah. So some of these things would apply, but some of them might not apply as well. So you always have to go through documentations, read the website, and understand what the tool would do for you. Right. So we've explained some of this part. Let's move into the workspace, right? So let's move into the workspace. I'm going to move into this specific workspace, or let's create a workspace, and I'm going to call this operators. Okay. So this is a workspace. It's with hold, marvelous, hold. The projects, the API projects. Okay. So this is a very simple one, and this is, I'm going to make this personal for now, but you can see, you can set this into a private workspace, a team workspace, or a public workspace. When it's personal, only you can access this. When it's private, it's very, it's like, enterprise scale, right? Nobody can access it, just you and your team, right? Just you and a specific, amount of, let's just say you and your organization. It has this bunch of, rules where you can set permissions and all those kind of stuff. But of course, I can't use this because, yeah, I don't want to pay for it. It's only applicable for the paid plans, right? So you see, you can upgrade to a professional and enterprise plan to create private workspaces. There you have the team for you and your team. You have public, and when it's public, everyone can see it. Everyone, anywhere, they can just access it from the API network. Okay. All right. So let's work with the personal option here. I'm going to create a new workspace, and our workspace is being created. You see, we don't have any collection or APIs or environments. So let's do it this way. If you have any question, I'm currently looking at the chat, and I'll just give you 1 minute to drop your questions in the chat. And I'm currently looking at the time, so just 1 minute, drop a question. If you drop a question that I can answer, but if there's no question within the next 1 minute, I will move on to explain the various sections we have. Okay, so someone is asking, can you change the access afterwards? Yes, you can do that. You can always go to the workspace settings and change the settings or the configurations in there. All right, so I think it's almost 1 minute. Any other question? Right. Okay, so I don't think any other question is coming in. All right, so let's move on to understand. I think I have to quit Discord. Just give me a second. I have to quit Discord. Okay, so let's continue. We're sorry about that. All right, so now we have, let me also move this to avoid distractions. Okay, so now we have, this our workspace. We have new and import, right? So basically, what can we do with the new option here? So when you click on the new option, it gives you this modal, and from this modal, you can do things like creating new HTTP requests. I just clicked on that and it gave us a new request, though we're not saving that. Let's go back. You can create a new request, and I'm sure you know what an HTTP request is already by now. But if you don't, an HTTP request is basically, a request that you send over the internet, to or over a network to a specific endpoint, right? So to a specific endpoint. So let's say you have, GET requests that would fetch things from a server. You have post requests, you have pull requests. Sorry, not pull requests. You have put requests. You have delete, right? And there's so many others. So we call those things verbs, right? HTTP verbs. We would look at them. We would also talk about, we would try to explain them. I would open up a documentation on the MDN network, and we'll go through this, these verbs, right? So you can also make WebSocket requests. Now, the WebSocket is definitely totally different from the regular HTTP request, right? The WebSocket is the kind of request that you open once and you're able to perform a different type of communication. We call it full duplex, basically. So you can send and receive signals like back and forth. It will stay open until you decide to close it, right? But once that handshake has been once that contract has been signed, like both areas will be open and they can receive and send to each other, basically. So you use WebSockets for things like chats, right? Chat applications, I send you a message, you send me a response, those kind of stuff. For the HTTP request, this is basically stateless, right? And the major reason why it's called stateless, we'll get to that later on, but the major reason why it's called stateless is because it doesn't understand what is really going on, right? So you just send the request, you perform something, give you your JSON response, and that's the end. Basically, it cannot remember that it even made that request. That it has performed that function, and that is it. It's closed, right? If you want something else, you have to send another one. So it's not stateful. So we have what we call stateless and stateful. And yeah, as we proceed, I would explain in more details. But basically, HTTP request is stateless. It does not have any state. It does not remember any of these things. It does not understand any of these things. Unlike WebSocket that you connect and the network is open, right? Okay, so please don't turn on your video. You don't have to do that. All right, so we have what we also call gRPC, which is a different type of network. I would say like a paradigm, right? It's a different paradigm entirely. The way it works basically is you're actually calling a function, inside a code base over the internet. Yeah, that is a bit more complex than the regular stuff we know. So we're not going to focus on this, but yes, you should know that Postman can, test WebSocket requests and gRPC requests. You can also see that they are currently in the beta release, which means it's not completely stable yet. They are just integrating this into Postman. And from what I've experienced, I can say they are doing a very good job at that already. So we have collections, and basically for the collections, it's a way to logically group your requests, right? So you have maybe a bunch of requests for performing user operations like sign in, create accounts, forgot password, those kind of stuff. You can group them into a general collection, and then you can even have like subfolders within that collection, to have, to probably move these items into, I would kind of call it a modularized pattern, but in this case, it works with tagging. So I would give another example. So let's assume I have the desktop. I'm going to just create README, and I'm going to open README. So this is just a very simple file. I want to use this to explain something. So you have like a folder called retail app, right? So this is kind of like a collection. It's a retail app. Basically, within the retail app, you have some modules like authentication, and this is the module. And within that module, you have like sign up, right? You have like sign in. You have Workspaces. You have like forgot password. So this is just all right. So then we have a different folder again here. We can say users, maybe profile, right? So we can say get profile. Say update profile. So you see the way I'm able to group this. It's looking more like a folder structure right now. So we have the collection, at the top here, and then we have a folder, and we use this folder. I can call it a module, but basically, we call it tag, right? Authentication tag, and within the tag, it's able to group multiple requests. So this can be a post request because, of course, we are signing up. Sign in also a post request. Forgot password, definitely a post request, right? Then when you have like the get profile, you can have get request. Update profile, you can have a put request. So these are the verbs we're talking about, and we're going to explain them very soon. So now we have a collection, we have those folders, you don't necessarily need those folders. You can put everything together, but imagine you now have like 1,000 endpoints, right? You have 1,000 endpoints. It's not going to look so good. I always advocate for like having a good modular structure, whether you're working on the back end, whether you're a tester or you're working on the front end. I think it's a good way to actually structure projects, right? So yeah, so basically the collection would hold all these items, and then you can create subfolders in there to structure things properly. Then we have the environment, and basically what the environment will do is it would create, you can create an environment and put in some kind of details, like your username, password, tokens, and these details are going to be specific to that environment, which means I can open my collection and say, okay, I want to test these stuffs here. I have some variables in there. I want to test this thing, but I want to use the staging environment, where I have the username and password for staging, right? So another quick way to explain this. This is my collection, right? I have two environments. The first environment is production. Second environment, staging, right? So I want to test some of these things to see if they work very well, but I want to test with the staging environment. So within the staging environment, I have a bunch of things like URL, I have like a port, I have like a password, right? Or let's say token. So token. All right. So when I'm trying to test using this environment, if any of these particular requests, require any of these details, it's going to pull that particular detail from this environment because I have set that I am working with this environment. Now, I can have the same set of details for the production environment. So when I said that I want to test now with the production environment, if the detail I have here is, let's say, top universe API.com, this detail will be passed in as the sign up request. So let's say the sign up request by default would be HTTP, for example. Let's just call it URL/sign up. So when I am testing with production, URL is basically going to change to this, right? When I'm testing with the staging, let's say URL is localhost, right? So URL would change. So I'm going to use like this, and then this is SSL. So basically, when I'm testing on local on my staging, this is what I have. When I'm testing on the production environment, this is what I have. So it might sound a bit complex, but I'm trying as much as possible to break it down. What I will do is we're going to, of course, work with a quick test. So let's proceed and let's try to be to move faster. Okay, if I'm too fast, also let me know in the chat, please, if I'm too fast. All right, so now I've explained what your workspace is. You see, you can actually create a workspace to build independently or in collaboration. So you can, a workspace is more like a higher level of the collection. But in this case, you can have multiple collections within a workspace, right? You can have multiple. The environment is actually tied to the entire Postman ecosystem, like the entire Postman application you have, not necessarily tied to a collection, right? So you can create multiple environments and use that on different occasions. Then coming down to these are the building blocks, right? Coming down to the advanced section, we have API documentation. So Postman, a lot of people don't use this. So you have a question there. Is staging another name for local environment? Well, it depends on you. Staging might be a name for like an environment that you use for testing outside the local environment. So you can have multiple environments. Now remember one thing, when you hear me say production and staging, they're just like the industry, standard names that we use. But you can have an environment called what's your name? You can have an environment called Muhammad. You can have an environment called Marvelous. You can have an environment called John Doe. So we can all decide to test with different environments, right? But staging sometimes is also used in place of development, right? So they're just like standards, right? Because when anybody see the environment development, they can reason with what you're trying to say. When you use Muhammad or Marvelous, they might be confused. Of course, they will be confused. So that is just what I'm trying to show you here. Okay, so on the advanced part, you see that you can actually use Postman for API documentation. Proper documentation that you can then access on the web. You can share with people, and they can use that documentation to really look through your API design and understand what you're trying to do, right? And we'll create a sample documentation. We'll deploy that documentation with Postman. It's free, so you don't have to pay for that. And I will show you how to do that properly. Then we also have like the mock server. The mock server is basically, you try to implement a mock even without writing your real backend code, right? So with the API spec, if you are the developer that work on API spec first, which is something I definitely love to do. You see, I have my Stoplight Studio open, and this is an API spec you're seeing here, right? So we can work on the spec and then upload the spec into Postman, and then generate a documentation, generate a mock server that the front end guys can even start testing and working with. Even when your backend is not completed yet. But basically, when you say mock, you're creating a base, that you can use for testing stuff while you're building the real thing. So it's just like a sample. I think there's a different term I'm trying to recollect here. I can't figure it out. Yeah, but I hope you understand what I mean, right? So monitor, you're able to schedule automated tests and check the performance of your API. While it's running. So you're able to monitor your API using Postman as well. Whether you are monitoring it on your local endpoints or your production endpoint, you can use the Postman tool to do that, to check the performance and also automate your tests locally too. So yeah, and then we have the API section, and this is where you use in managing all the aspects of the API design, development, and testing. So basically, a lot of people would always, go ahead with the collection part because they don't design the API first. If you design your API with tools like a Stoplight and any other tool, or even writing it manually, you can test, you can upload in here. You look at the structure of your API, you understand the schemas, you understand, a lot of things about the API. You even see examples, if you design it properly. And with the spec, the front-end guys will not come back asking you a lot of questions because you've created examples, you've shown them the expected result when you run this code, right? So they don't need to always come back to you with lots and lots of questions. Unfortunately, people don't really, design API. Most people, don't design APIs first. And I think this is basically going to lead us to, the reason why we're looking at organizing something, probably a paid session, but, something really robust where we can teach you API design and, implementation after design. So in a very simple way. Okay, so coming back here right now, we have the API section, and basically I can create a new API, set my version, set the schema type I'm trying to use. If it's a GraphQL API, definitely I use OpenAPI most of the time, version 3.0 or 3.1, and we'll design one of these APIs in one of our sessions. So yeah, so back here you see we have the flows, and yeah, I think the flows is used for creating workflows by connecting series of requests through a drag and drop UI. So this is really impressive. I've seen this, but I'm still going to try this very well even before teaching it, but I'm very sure it's going to be amazing because basically you are going to be able to create workflows. And when you hear the term workflow, you are trying to create like series of actions, so a series of actionable steps in such a way that you don't necessarily need to write code, but you use like a drag and drop UI to do some of these things. And then you're able to execute that workflow, is able to perform multiple requests, and give you the expected result at the end of the day. So this is going to be amazing. I personally believe that. I've not tried it, but I'm definitely going to try it, and I believe it's going to be fun, right? Yeah, so I'm going to leave this for now. Yeah, but you can always come back and try this. All you have to do is click on flows, right? You see the one I just created is right here, and all you have to do is to start designing your creating your blogs and doing this stuff here, send requests, and yeah, I'm going to really test this, and I believe you can actually program basically by performing options using Boolean operators and all this stuff. This is definitely the kind of stuff I love doing. So let's come back to collection now. I have explained what you have here, right? And the next thing you might want to do most times is import. So let's say you have an API somewhere else. You can import it in here. It can be an open API spec, a GraphQL spec, even down to, I call it call, CURL, which is basically the kind of request to do directly from the terminal using Bash at times. So we are not going to go into that, but yeah, you can import, APIs into Postman as a file, as a folder, as a direct link, as raw text, as a code repository from GitHub, and they're also using API gateway. So API gateway is basically something I love to use, with AWS. This is on AWS. We're not going to look into that. The major thing is using this particular section, you can import an existing API from somewhere into your current workspace, right? Let's start by creating a collection. So I'm going to create a new collection, and let's call this collection food collection, right? So I'm going to call this the foodie app. All right, so we have created a foodie app. This is a collection right now. There's no single request in here. And the next thing you will be looking at is adding your request. But basically looking at it here, you see we have the foodie app. We have a link to this collection. So you can invite people, right? I'm not doing that now. You can share this collection. Of course, you can share this collection with a group. You can share it with, via JSON link. You can, you can definitely share with people. I think this is the most important part, and you can give them some level of permissions, but we can't do that here because, of course, it's a free plan. So everybody you share this with will be able to edit, the collection. There's a different way to share, where you share like, the documentation, but let's leave this for now. Good. So another thing here is that, you can run the entire collection. You can move this, you can create a fork so that you create like a different version somewhere. You can export these, you can manage those, you can delete the collection, and you can also set up authentication parameters that people will be able to use while trying to make requests directly into any request, any requests while trying to make any kind of connection to any request within the collection. So let us go ahead. You see we also have variables, right? So you can basically set variables that are local to this collection. So the variables you set in here, for example, URL, and I say my URL is localhost, 3000. Whenever I create a request, I just click on create a request. If I had URL right here, this URL is going to end up. So it's saying it's not resolved, and I think it's because I have failed to save. Let's go back. I have saved now. So when I hover on it, you see we have 3000. This particular variable is local to the foodie app. So let's go back again. This variable you're seeing here, it is local. So these variables are specific to this collection. Can you see that? So you can have like the port number, not post, but port. So I'm going to move this down here, and it should be 3000. So you see what we have right now. Let's take this off. So we have URL and the port. Coming back here, I can say URL port, right? Then before we have like sign up. So these are ways. You don't want to always type URL and port everywhere like localhost 3000. So I mean, you can, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But sometimes you just want to, you want a situation where you are able to change the ports and it will change on every single request, right? So that is the smart move we're making here, and we're using the ports. All right, so another thing you need to understand is, as I said earlier, these variables are specific to this collection, because remember, we can create environments. We don't have any environments for now, but we can go ahead to create environments that would also carry variables as well, right? So we can create an environment for foodie, foodie env, let's call it foodie env. And then we can have those variables like URL, I'll put the initial value, or make it a secret value. But we can add those values. Come on, cancel. So yeah, default, change type. So we can add those values in here, right? Like the localhost stuff that I showed you right now. And then if you come back to your collection that has no environment right now, we can add the foodie environment, and everything here would would reference what you have either locally or globally, depending on where the value is coming from. So just to make you understand this better, if I come down to the foodie environment and I say token, and I say, when you try to make any request, just work with this as a random token, right? So I'm going to save this right now, go back to the collection, check the request we're trying to work with, and I'm just simply going to put the token. So you see, the token is coming from this scope of environment, and this is basically because we have this environment turned on here. If I turn off the environment, you see token is no longer found. This is an unresolved variable. Okay, so there are lots of things about Postman that makes it fun to use, right? For now, we just created a new request. Let's try to even make this clear and concise. So we have new request, and everything you see here is related to this request. So what can we do basically? Yeah, so we can add parameters. So or params, right? And basically params are, I'll show you an example. Let's take off the token and let's just call this create. Let's use a regular, something that you would understand better. So 3,000, and want to add a param like let's say like username, right? And our username is math. Then the key, or let's create a different key value pair now, a different parameter. So let's say age, and let's just put 50. All right, so you see we have localhost and we have username and age 50. So this is the parameter basically. If you're browsing, you've seen parameters like this. Before you start putting your parameters, you put a question mark in here. When I take off the question mark, you see everything here goes off, right? This is no longer, referred to as a query parameter. Instead, this is part of your URL parameter. So with the question mark, it detects query parameters, right? And you have the username, which is part of the query. Have the age, which is another query. That's why you see the and, right? So can we do this manually? Yes, we can. So we can add a different query parameter manually, and you see it automatically shows up here as well. So now you have multiple query parameters. You can grab this from your code base. We also have like authentication. So let's say you're making a request to this get endpoint, and the name of this endpoint, we can edit it from here. Let's call this get food, right? You're getting a food basically, and you can add authentication. You can add multiple headers. By default, we have some headers, but I'll be explaining that in a different session. We have the body. You can add, the body, like it can be the raw type with JSON. So we can say when you try to get any food, of course, you won't use this in a get request, but you would use this in a put or post request. It's ideal that you have a kind of body item you're sending. This is not a good example. So instead, I'm going to create, because this video, sorry, not a collection. Let's take this off, take it off. All right, so I'm going to create a new request, add request, and I'm going to say create food. Okay, so yeah, create food, and I'm going to just call localhost. Yeah, take this off. So when you're creating a food, you want to send a body. The body has to be raw and JSON. I'm sure you saw we have different types of body. None meaning you're not sending anybody. Form data meaning you're sending a form data. Okay, so there's something called multi-part form data. Multi-part form data. So you can, when you try to upload things like images, like videos, you work with what we call multi-part file uploads. You also have like, the URL encoded form types, right? Which would also, like try some examples on this stuff. So have the raw option, which is most of the time, what we use most of the time to send your JSON objects, right? You have binary, which you can also use to send files. Then you have GraphQL, if you are sending GraphQL, if you're working with GraphQL basically. So let's go back to raw, and then let's select JSON. So we're trying to send a request, and our request should carry like, let's say the food name. This should be a valid JSON. So the food name is probably, let me see. Okay, jollof rice. I'm not spelling this wrongly. Jollof rice. Okay, then we have the food price, or let's just say the price. So let's just change this to. So someone is asking, what does this kind of parameter mean? So you have URL type, this, the very last part. I saw it today and I was confused. Okay, so you have type equals. So basically, I think what you have there is someone built or someone created an endpoint, that he or she can use to accept multiple things. Basically, everything is going to be passed into the type. So yeah, let me just go ahead and add a price here. So you see, I have a very simple JSON object, and I can send this to the server, and I can grab this. I'm going to quickly grab this, then we'll end this session because time is already against us. So we're going to continue from collections, and I'll make sure that you understand most of these things here. But I'll show you a quick example. So for you, Bendex, you asked a question, and this is what you saw in there. So you have like slash type. Okay. So you have okay. So let's do it this way. So basically, the person puts in. I'm going to collect the type. Okay, so the person puts in the type parameter just like this, and then you have name, age, ID. So this is probably kind of like the person is trying to pick one of these options, I guess, right? He's trying to pick one of these options. So probably you sending this would maybe either pick one, put in one because he's asking for type, right? And it's just showing you that, you have multiple types that you can pass in on this URL. I need to take this off. So, you can pass in, any type from here, that is what I guess the person was trying to explain. So I don't know where you saw that. Yeah, so well, basically this is what you're trying to do, which I also think you can even pass this in the I guess maybe in the body. If you're doing a post request, this is a get request. That's why this person is passing it as a query parameter like this. So I'm just going to take this off, and yeah, so back to this, we're saying create food is post, right? So just a quick example before we end this session. I think I can do that in 5 minutes. I'm going to simply create a new project, and I'm going to call it Express Web. So let's move into Express Web, and then let's just create a file, index.js, and also I'm going to do npm init-y, right? So basically I'm running multiple commands at the same time. So let's execute this. All right, let's open this project in VS Code. And right now, someone is saying I was only trying to be certain if my assumption was on point. Yeah, so if yeah, you can do multiple stuffs like that, but sometimes it might not be the best option. For this example, I think it depends on what the person was trying to achieve, but there's nothing wrong with this at all. It's a query parameter type, that probably should either take name, age, or ID, or probably should take everything, with the comma, and then, yeah, so it's actually possible to pass in, query parameters that way. So index, I'm going to quickly create a very simple Express application. I've shown you how to install packages. One of the packages we're going to be working with during the course of our training is called Express. So what we're going to do right now is go to ExpressJS, right? JS. Okay. So let's quickly visit the ExpressJS website. We're going to follow the tutorial here. Don't try to cram some of these things. You'll get used to them. Yeah, and as you start learning more, sometimes you will definitely, you're going to see me do a lot of Google search, right? I'm going to be doing a lot of Googling. So just, this is how you install Express. Let's go down to getting started. So we're going to install Express, and this is the normal install. So let's install this. I already initialized, package.json, right, which is my node project. So I'm installing Express right now. And after installing Express, I'm simply going to bring in the hello world example, which is what we have right here. All right, so we have the Express example right now. This is basically going to give us a very simple, hello world. This is going to be opening up on this port for 3000. So if I run this, I can run it with Node or NodeMon. I'm going to use NodeMon. I have it installed already because I want this to always change, when we save this file. So index, right? This is running on port 3000. So if we go back to Postman and just run the gets, okay, so let's take these items off. So if I run this, you see I'm going to get hello world, right? Of course, that is what we're sending out right now. So hello Mav, let's change this. Let's save. This will restart automatically. I can run this again and we have Mav, right? Speaking about the query parameter, what if I am going to, accept like a parameter? So we have what we call request and response. Now, basically, response is used to send things out. Request is used to collect details of what you're bringing in, right? I'm going to quickly grab request dot, I think it's params, right? So let's just do console.log, console.log. So we're going to grab the request.params. Let's save this again. Let's add a query parameter. So I'm just going to say name is marvelous, right? And let's send this. Let's see what we have. So looking at this, you see it's telling us, okay, there's nothing in here for some weird reasons. So let's see. I think maybe we would have to bring in app.use express.json app.use. These are some I think express.url encoded. I think these are some, extensions we use to accept things like JSON objects and probably the URL parameters as well. So let's do another send request and let's see. We still have the same feedback, meaning there's something wrong here. Let's see the params. All right, so a quick one. I'm definitely making a mistake, I guess. So, all right, so I'm going to do a quick Google search if this is not working. I'm guessing it's not, okay, yeah, undefined. All right, so I'm making a mistake there. Let's go ahead and quickly check out to fix this because I have definitely, I'm going to just run this code this way. I'm going to run this search saying get express yes params, okay, get params. Okay, so fine. We're going to get an example. I'm using this grepper tool. So we have the request of params. Okay, so I think this is working. This is exactly what I did. Oh, okay, yeah, request of query. Okay, yeah, so I get it. I use params if I have like the slash hello, right? That kind of stuff. And that param will definitely be added to my parameter just like this, like name. So if I have name and I grab like name, let's say Mav, I don't know if this would work. So let's see if I send this and I check here, you see I have name Mav, right? Name Mav, just what I have here, Mav. So this is our parameter. Yeah, for the query, I have to do dot query. So I see someone is saying I should use body parser. Body parser is the old way of doing things. I think this is the new way of making this work. Maybe you are right. So let's go ahead and take this off. I'm taking off the parameter right now, which is this, right? So let's just try to get the query, right? Let's send this again, and now you see I have the name Marvelous. So I'm going to, that is the query. So if we have multiple queries like the age of 50, for example, and I send this, it's going to print out the whole thing. As you can see, the name and the age, right? So of course you can grab these items by basically saying, let's say let's name and age equals request of query. I don't know if this will work. Console.log name age. Okay. So I did not create like two variables. I'm just trying to see if we can pass in the whole thing in there just like that, and it worked. So name and age. Okay. So we're able to get the name and we're also able to get the age. But of course, you can do this, like let name equals request of query dot name, and you can do similar stuff, age, age, yeah, I think this. I just saved that, run this again, and we're still getting the same value. We can also, access this using the square brackets pattern, right? So we can access it this way. Square brackets. Okay. So if I save this and I run this again, this is still working. All right, so basically, what we've done so far is just use the query parameter. I'm a bit fast and I know that, but you can always watch this video and let's just try to do the post request, where we can grab the body. So basically to grab the body, I'm just going to say let body equals request the body, and let's take off, let's console.log the body, right? So we can just pass this into the console.log, right? So to make things easier as well, we're going to run a post request, and this time around it's post app.post. So this is app.post to the base endpoint, right? The base, right? If you have like create, you have to post to create, right? So now we're just posting to the base endpoint, which is this, and this is what we would also post to. So we're going to send that body, right here. We have name, jollof rice, and the price. If I send this, you see we're able to print that item, the name and the price, right? And we're able to work with this item and even send, a feedback, right? Instead of sending hello world, we can just say res.json, and we're going to send the body right back, right? And if I save this, we can do that again, send, and we'll get what we sent in. We can decide to play around with the body, right? We can decide to construct a new body, or we can say every price that comes in, we want to attach a discount, right? So we can attach a discount by simply saying let's discounts right, equals the price. Of course, we need to do some things like validation. We'll talk about those stuff later on. So I'm going to grab that value of the price. So I'm going to say body dot price, right? Or you can just do it this way. The price probably times, I don't know, okay, times 10 divided by 100. Okay, so GitHub Copilot is doing its job, and let's see if we can just go ahead to say body dot discounts equals discount, right? So discount, okay, and we're going to send out the body at the end of the day. Let's run this. So now you see we have the name, the price, and discount. So they are I mean, nice stuff we can do, with APIs. We can actually do a lot of crazy stuff. I'm going to teach you step by step. We're going to build applications, and I believe you would enjoy it. If you really enjoyed this specific session, you let me know in the chat on Discord. You can tweet, and we'll definitely do nicer stuff. We don't have enough time right now. We're already way past the time, and of course, I'm going to receive query after this session from Omaka and Emanuela. So thank you very much, and do have a very good day. Have a productive day, and I will see you next time. All right, one more thing. Nice. Oh no, I think I'm being too playful or something. Okay, so if you have any other thing to add or you have a question, drop it in the chat, drop it on Discord. I would answer you. Bye for now. Okay.